2 days after my 71st birthday, which I spent all by myself, sitting on my porch, waiting for my son to show up, I finally got a text from him. I opened my phone, my heart racing, thinking it was an apology. It was a request, all right, but not for forgiveness. He wanted $5,500 for his wife's birthday party. My name is Elias Vance. I am 71 years old, and I live here in Detroit, Michigan. I spent my whole life as a master machinist in the auto industry, working for the shops that made heavy-duty parts for tractors and industrial engines. I started as an apprentice when I was only 14. I worked every station on that floor until I became the shop foreman. 47 years I spent on that factory floor, surrounded by the roar of the machines, the smell of cutting oil, and the fine dust of iron. I was never a man of luxury, but I always kept my dignity. I bought my own house when I was 32, brick by brick. I spent my weekends mixing concrete and raising those walls with my own two hands. I raised my only son, giving him everything I could. A good education, clean clothes, and a hot meal on the table. Every single day, I worked overtime. I took on side jobs on the weekends, fixing old machinery just to make a few extra bucks. My wife, Loretta, was a seamstress. She'd stay up late at her sewing machine, doing alterations, hemming pants, and tailoring prom dresses for the neighborhood kids. Together, we built an honest life. If you're finding value in this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is. Every day, there is a new story here. Stories of people like us who have a lot to tell. Marcus, my son, was always the pride of the family. Smart, sharp. He got into a top-tier mechanical engineering program. Loretta and I cried tears of joy the day those results came in. I paid for his private university because the state school was too far, and he hadn't made the cut there. For 5 years, I paid tuition that cost more than my mortgage did when I first got married. But I didn't care. It was so my son could have a better future than mine. When he graduated, he landed a great job at a massive industrial firm. He married Tiffany 3 years later, a beautiful girl from a wealthy family of business owners. We threw them a huge party at the community hall. I gave them a used car as a wedding gift, but it was in great shape. Loretta hand-embroidered their entire set of bed linens. We wanted them to start off right. But it was after that wedding that things started to shift. And what happened on my last birthday was just the straw that broke the camel's back. I was born in 1953 in the rural outskirts of Alabama, in a small community of sharecroppers. My father was a farmer, planting corn and beans on a patch of land that barely kept us fed. We were 6 siblings, and I was the oldest boy. From the time I was a little kid, I was out in those fields. I'd get up before sunrise to milk the cow, feed the chickens, and weed the garden. I only made it to the 4th grade in a tiny country schoolhouse. The teacher was a gentleman who taught all 4 grades at once in the same room. I loved learning, but when I turned 14, my daddy said he couldn't afford to keep me anymore. I needed to work. A cousin of mine, who lived in Detroit, found me a spot in a machine shop as an apprentice. I moved into his house, sleeping in a tiny back room I shared with 2 other boys. That machine shop was a whole new world, massive engines, noise that made your head throb, and the heavy scent of heated metal and oil. I started out sweeping the floors, degreasing the machines, and organizing tools. But I had a good eye and a steady hand. Within 6 months, I was operating a lathe. The shop foreman, Mr. Sterling, took me under his wing. He said I had talent, that I could go far. I worked from 7 in the morning until 5 in the evening, Monday through Saturday. I earned a wage that barely covered my food and clothes, but I saved every penny I could. I dreamed of owning my own home and never having to rely on anyone. On Sundays, I'd go to the 8 o'clock service at the Baptist church and spend the rest of the day studying technical drawings I borrowed from Mr. Sterling. I learned to read blueprints, calculate tolerances, and figure out spindle speeds. It was near that factory where I met Loretta. She was the daughter of the woman who owned the Soul Food Diner down the street where most of us workers ate lunch. I went there every day for the daily special. She'd work the tables, always with a smile on her face and a gentle way of speaking. She was lean, with dark skin and eyes that sparkled when she laughed. It took me 6 months to build up the courage to say anything more than good afternoon and thank you very much. When I finally asked her out, I nearly died of nerves. We went to a Sunday matinee at the theater. I don't even remember the movie, but I remember taking her hand halfway through and thinking my heart was going to jump right out of my chest. We started courting after that. 3 years later, in 1975, we got married at the downtown AME church. I was 22, and she was 19. We rented for the first few years, a small place with 2 rooms, a kitchen, and a bath. Loretta worked from home, sewing for people. She bought a used machine and started hemming pants for the guys at the plant. Eventually, she moved up to doing alterations and fitting evening gowns. She was good at it, too. She had a line of customers waiting for her. I stayed at the machine shop, moving up the ranks. From a lathe operator, I became a tool and die maker, then a quality inspector. I worked overtime whenever it was offered. On the weekends, I fixed machines for small neighborhood shops. Every extra dollar went into savings. In 1979, we bought our lot. In 1985, after 6 years of building it bit by bit, we moved into our own home. 3 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, 2 baths, and a nice backyard. I did most of the work myself. I laid the bricks, framed the walls, and put down the flooring. Marcus was born in 1987, when I was 34 and Loretta was 31. We had almost given up hope of having children. Loretta had lost 2 pregnancies before him. When she got pregnant with Marcus and made it past the first trimester, we finally started to believe. He was born healthy, screaming at the top of his lungs, weighing nearly 8 pounds. We raised Marcus with so much love, making sure he never wanted for anything. He went to private school from the time he was a boy. I worked myself to the bone to pay that tuition, but I wanted my son to have the opportunities I never had. He took coding classes, had a computer at home when most folks didn't even know what the internet was. He always had nice clothes, name brand sneakers, and every book he needed. Loretta would go out of her way to cook his favorite meals and drive him to school whenever it rained. She helped him with his homework every night. I wasn't home much because of work, but I tried to make it up to him on the weekends. I'd take him to the park, we'd play catch, and I'd teach him how to fix things. I wanted him to know the value of working with your hands, to know that nothing in this life comes for free. When Marcus was 15, Loretta was diagnosed with a serious heart condition. Dilated cardiomyopathy, the doctor called it. Her heart was enlarged and weak. It wasn't pumping right. She started an expensive treatment, monthly meds, specialists, the whole thing. I started working double shifts at the plant. I took every bit of overtime that came my way. Loretta had to give up sewing. She couldn't handle sitting up for that long anymore. Marcus kept up his grades. He got into a great engineering program in 2005. He didn't get into the public university, but he got into a prestigious private one. The tuition back then was $7,000 a semester, almost half my salary. I took out a loan from the bank and sold the car I'd bought just 2 years prior. I went back to taking the bus. It didn't matter. My son was going to be an engineer. During college, he started to change. He wasn't that affectionate boy who used to hug me when I got home from work anymore. He became distant, more concerned with his new friends and university parties. He'd ask for money every week to go out, buy clothes, or head to cookouts. I gave it to him. After all, that's what I was working for, so he could enjoy the youth I never had. Loretta started getting sick more often. In 2008, she had a major crisis and was hospitalized for 2 weeks. Marcus was in his 3rd year of college. He visited his mother in the hospital only 3 times in those 2 weeks. He said he was in the middle of exams and couldn't miss class. I was the one spending the nights in the hospital, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair by her bed. When Marcus graduated in 2009, he got a job at a big industrial equipment company. His starting salary as a junior engineer was higher than mine after 40 years on the job. I felt proud, but also a little strange. My son had achieved everything I dreamed for him, but it seemed like it had built a wall between us. In 2012, he met Tiffany. She was a human resources coordinator at the company where he worked, daughter of a family that owned several construction supply stores. They lived in a nice part of town, Grosse Pointe. Her daddy owned 3 major warehouses. When Marcus brought her home to meet us, I realized she looked at everything with a certain kind of disdain. Our simple house, our old furniture, my work clothes that still smelled like the shop. They dated for a year and decided to get married. Her family wanted a massive wedding with 200 guests. Her father offered to pay half. Loretta and I scraped together every bit of savings we had and paid our part. It was $6,500, money we had saved for years for emergencies. But it was our only son's wedding. We wanted to hold our heads high. The party was at a fancy ballroom with a full banquet, a live band, and expensive decor. Marcus and Tiffany looked happy, but when it came time for the speeches, Marcus took the microphone and thanked his in-laws, thanking his father-in-law for making this wonderful celebration possible. Not a single word for me or Loretta, even though we'd paid for half of it. Loretta cried on the way home. I took her hand and told her it was okay, that his happiness was what mattered. But inside, something had broken. After the wedding, the visits became rare. Marcus always had an excuse: too much work, a business trip, a commitment with Tiffany's family. When he did come, he stayed for a few minutes, always in a rush, always checking his phone. Tiffany hardly ever came. She'd say she wasn't feeling well, or had a headache, or a prior engagement. Loretta took a turn for the worse in 2015. Her heart just couldn't take it anymore. She spent 3 months going in and out of the hospital. I retired so I could care for her full time. Marcus visited her once a week. He'd stay for 30 minutes and say he had to go because of his workload. In her final week, when it was clear she wasn't going to make it, he showed up twice. Loretta passed away in August of 2015 from congestive heart failure. She was only 59 years old. At the funeral, Marcus cried, hugged the relatives, and accepted the condolences. But by the next day, he was back to his routine. He called me a week later, saying he needed to sell some of his mother's things because there was no point in keeping old clothes. I told him I wasn't selling a thing, that his mother's things were staying in her house with me. That was the first time that we had a real fight. He called me stubborn and said I was being too sentimental. I told him he didn't know the first thing about sentiment, that he barely gave his mother any attention while she was still breathing. He hung up on me. After that, contact became even scarcer. He'd call once a month, a quick chat, always asking if I was healthy or needed anything. But I could tell it was more about protocol than real interest. The visits spread out, Christmas and birthdays, if he came at all. But there was one thing that never changed. When he needed money, I was the first person he called. It had been that way since before he got married. The first time Marcus asked for money after the wedding was 3 months after the honeymoon. He called saying he had some unexpected expenses with the apartment they were renting, that the company was late with the payroll. He needed a loan of $925. I told him it wasn't a loan, it was a gift. A father doesn't loan to a son, a father helps. I transferred the money that same day. He gave me a quick thanks and hung up. He never brought it up again. 6 months later, another request. This time, it was $1,000. Tiffany wanted to take a postgraduate course, and they didn't have the enrollment fee. I asked if they couldn't wait a few months to save up. Marcus got offended. He said it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and the class was almost full. I sent the money. Tiffany never thanked me personally. She sent a thanks, Pop, through a text from Marcus. In 2014, before Loretta got worse, he asked for $2,800. He said he wanted to trade in his car because his was getting old and giving him trouble. His car was 3 years old. I told him my car was 15 years old and ran just fine. He told me I didn't understand that an engineer needed to maintain an image, that clients didn't trust a professional driving an old car. I sent $850. That's all I had in my savings. He complained that it was $950 short, but he took it. Loretta used to get so sad about these things. She'd say Marcus had changed, that he wasn't her little boy anymore. I defended my son. I'd say he was just starting out in life and needed help. But deep down, I felt something was wrong too. Every call from him started giving me a knot in my chest. I already knew what was coming, a request for money. After Loretta died, the requests kept coming. In 2016, it was $2,200 for a trip Tiffany wanted to take to Europe. In 2017, $1,850 to change the living room furniture. In 2018, $3,700 because he said he had credit card debt with high interest. I always sent it, even though it hurt, because he was my son, and I had hope that one day he'd see how much I was sacrificing for him. The visits stayed rare. He'd show up maybe 3 or 4 times a year, always in a hurry, always with an excuse not to stay for lunch. I almost never saw Tiffany. She got pregnant in 2019 and gave birth to my granddaughter, Aaliyah, in 2020. I didn't meet the baby until she was 3 months old. Marcus brought her over one afternoon, stayed for half an hour, said the baby was tired, and left. Since then, I've seen my granddaughter maybe 5 times in 4 years. I tried to be understanding. I knew they had their own lives, lived on the other side of town, had commitments. But it hurt. It hurt to see photos on Facebook of them at Tiffany's parents' house every single weekend. It hurt that my granddaughter called the other man Grandpa and barely knew who I was. It hurt to sleep alone in that house I built brick by brick, dreaming of filling it with grandkids. In 2021, Marcus asked for $6,000. He said he wanted to put a down payment on a condo because he couldn't stand paying rent anymore. I scraped together everything I had in savings and sold some old tools I had stored away. I sent the money. 3 months later, I saw a photo on Facebook of him at the door of a new condo, smiling with Tiffany and Aaliyah. The caption read, "Our little corner, conquered with a lot of hard work and dedication. Not a single word about my help." No photo of me was posted, no public thank you. The years went by and the pattern continued. Money requests followed by long periods of silence. Quick calls on my birthday. "Happy birthday, Pop. All good?" And that was it. Christmas. Sometimes he'd come for an hour. He'd arrive saying he had a commitment later that night at Tiffany's family's house. He'd bring a generic gift, a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine, and leave. I started saving all the bank transfer receipts. I don't really know why. It wasn't to charge him, but something told me to keep them. I added it all up once. In 10 years of the marriage, I had given him $26,500. That was more than I had in my entire life savings. It was the money I'd saved over a lifetime of double shifts and cutting corners. My neighbors started to notice. Mr. Vance from next door, no relation, just the same name, asked me once why my son never showed up. I gave him some random excuse. Ms. Holloway, from across the street, mentioned she'd seen on Facebook that my son had bought a new car, an imported truck. I didn't even know. He hadn't told me. He hadn't asked for money that time, probably because he knew I didn't have much left to give. At the beginning of 2024, he asked for another $2,800. He said Aaliyah was starting at an expensive private school and they needed to pay the enrollment. I told him I didn't have it. He insisted. He said it was for his daughter's education. The granddaughter I barely saw. I sold my old car. I didn't need it much. I walked most places anyway. I sent the $2,800. He thanked me via text. "Thanks, Pop. I'll visit when I can." He didn't visit. My birthday was coming up in August of 2024. I was turning 71 on the 15th. In the weeks leading up to it, I started cleaning the house, fixing everything up. I bought some soda and made a simple chocolate cake, the kind Loretta used to make. I didn't invite anyone formally, but I had hope Marcus would show up. It was my birthday, after all. He always called, at the very least. The week of my birthday, I sent him a message. "Son, the 15th is my birthday. I'd really love to see you and Aaliyah. It's been a while." He saw the message, but didn't reply. On the 14th, I called him. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I sent another text. "Son, call me when you can." He replied hours later. "Hey, Pop, in meetings all day. I'll call you later." He didn't call. On August 15th, the day of my birthday, I woke up early. I had breakfast looking out the window, cleaned the house again, took the cake out of the fridge, set some glasses on the table, and put on a nice shirt I had saved. I sat on the porch waiting. The day went by. I looked toward the gate every time I heard a car. Noon came, then 1, then 2. The cake sat untouched on the table, the soda getting warm. 3, 4, 5 o'clock. The phone rang at 6 in the evening. It was my sister, Clara, who lives in Atlanta. She called to wish me a happy birthday. We talked for a bit. She asked if Marcus had come to visit. I lied and told her he'd called earlier. I didn't want her to know. I didn't want to admit out loud that my only son had forgotten my birthday. At 7 o'clock, I went back inside. I put the cake back in the fridge, poured the warm soda down the drain, took off my nice shirt, and put on my old clothes. I sat in the armchair and just stared at the wall. I didn't cry. I couldn't. It was a different kind of pain, like something had been ripped out of my chest. The next day passed. Marcus didn't call or text. The day after that passed, too. Nothing. I tried to make excuses for him. Maybe he had a work trip. Maybe Aaliyah got sick. Maybe he truly forgot and was too ashamed to call now. On August 17th, 2 days after my birthday, my phone pinged. It was a text from Marcus. I opened it with a tight heart, thinking it was the apology. I read the message. "Pop, you good? I need some urgent help. Tiffany's turning 35 next week, and I want to throw her a surprise party. I already booked the hall, but the caterer is asking for $5,500 up front. Can you help me out? I need to deposit it by tomorrow so I don't lose the reservation. It's really important. Her father's going to be there, and her work colleagues. It's the party she's always dreamed of." I read the message 3 times. Every word was a knife. $5,500 for his wife's party. 2 days after my birthday, which he hadn't even remembered. "No, sorry, Pop, it slipped my mind. No late birthday wish. Just straight to the request for money." I stared at the phone, for I don't know how long. My hands were shaking. I felt something rising in my throat. A mix of anger, sadness, and disappointment. 71 years of life, 47 years of hard labor. How many times had I gone without something just to give to my son? How many times had I worked while sick just so I wouldn't miss a day's pay? How many weekends had I spent fixing other people's machines just to get extra money for him to have a better life? And now, he sent me this message with no shame, no consideration, as if I were a bank, an ATM he could withdraw from whenever he pleased. My fingers typed the response almost on their own. I went into my bank app and made a transfer of $50 to his account. In the transfer description, I wrote "Happy Birthday." I sent a screenshot of the transfer via text, along with, "Here is my contribution for your wife's party. Enjoy." His reply came in less than a minute. I could see the dots as he typed, deleted, and typed again. Finally, the message came. "Is this a joke, Pop? I need that money. Seriously, how can you be so stingy? I ask for help, and you send me $50? What a lack of consideration. Every time you needed me, I was there for you." I read that, and something inside me snapped for good. Every time you needed me, I was there for you. When? When did he ever help me? When his mother was dying in the hospital and he showed up once a week? When I spent my birthday alone waiting for him on the porch? When he took over $26,000 from me in 10 years and I never even got a decent thank you? I wrote back slowly, choosing every word. "Stingy is me. You forgot my birthday. You didn't call. You didn't text. You didn't show up. 2 days later, you come asking me for $5,500 for your wife's party. You've treated me like a bank for years. You take the money and vanish. Your mother died waiting for you to give her some attention. I'm old. I'm alone. And you only remember I exist when you need money. So, no, son. This time, I'm not giving. Learn to live on what you earn." He called me immediately. I answered. "Pop, what is this story?" His voice was agitated, annoyed. "Are you losing your mind? How can you say I treat you like a bank? I'm your son." "A son who doesn't even remember his father's birthday," I replied. My voice was firmer than I imagined. "I forgot, Pop. It happens. I have 1,000 things on my mind. Work, my daughter, a house to take care of. But you never forget to ask for money, do you? That never slips your mind? I can't believe you're doing this to me. I need that money. It's important. And my birthday wasn't important?" I felt my voice waver. "I spent the whole day waiting for you. I made a cake. I cleaned the house. I waited like a fool. Pop, I'll visit you later. We'll fix this. But right now, I need that money. The whatever is going to cancel. Let them cancel then. That's not my problem. What do you mean it's not your problem? You're my father. You have an obligation to help me. That word. Obligation was the final drop. Obligation, I repeated. I had an obligation to raise you, to give you an education, to pay for your college. I did that. But right now, you are an adult. You're married. You have a good job. I have no obligation to pay for an expensive party for your wife, especially when you treat me like this. Tiffany is going to be devastated. Her father is going to be there. How am I going to explain that there's no party? Because my father is cheap. Cheap, he called Yasmi. Cheap. Me, who gave him over $26,000 in 10 years. Me, who sold my car to pay for his daughter's school. The granddaughter, I barely know. Explain it however you want. And don't call me asking for money ever again. I'm done giving. I hung up. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. I sat at the kitchen chair and just stayed there, staring at the wall, trying to process what I had just done. Half an hour later, another message from him. You're going to regret this. Tiffany is here crying. I'm going to have to cancel everything and look like a fool in front of her family. But you don't care, do you? You only think about yourself. I didn't respond. I turned off the phone and went to bed. I couldn't sleep. I stayed up staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. Had I done the right thing? Had I been too harsh? But then I remembered my birthday. I remembered every money request. I remembered Loretta dying in the hospital without her son's attention. And I knew I had done the right thing. The next morning, I made a decision. I called Julian Kendrick. Julian had been my apprentice at the machine shop back in 1998. He was a skinny, quiet kid from a poor family. His father had walked out on his mother and 4 small children. He'd gotten the apprenticeship spot, and I was assigned to train him. Julian was good, smart, sharp, quick to learn, but he was always worried, always tense. I found out he was studying at night, doing his high school equivalency, dreaming of finishing school. I started helping him. I'd bring him textbooks I borrowed. I'd explain math and physics during lunch breaks. When Julian finished high school, I encouraged him to apply for college. He said he didn't have the money. I paid for 6 months of a prep course for him. I didn't tell anyone, not even Loretta. I took it from the money I made on side jobs. Julian got into law school at the State University. He spent 5 years studying by day and working by night at whatever job he could find. He graduated in 2005 and passed the bar exam on his first try. He started at a small firm. A few years later, he opened his own practice. We stayed in touch. He'd come to visit every now and then. He brought a gift at Christmas. He never forgot my birthday. At Loretta's funeral, he was there, hugging me and crying. He said she had been like a mother to him. I picked up the phone and called Julian. He answered on the 3rd ring. Mr. Vance? What a wonderful surprise. Julian's son, how are you? I'm good, sir. And you? Look, I'm needing some help. It's about a complicated matter with my son. Go ahead, sir. What happened? I told him everything. The birthday, the money request, the answer I gave, the locking of the doors, the visit from them. with the father-in-law, the threats, the police. Julian stayed quiet for a few seconds after I finished. Mr. Vance, this is serious. An attempt at a conservatorship is no joke. If he gets 2 doctors to certify incapacity, you could lose the right to manage your own assets. I know, son. The police advised me to get a lawyer, but I don't have the money to pay for a big firm. I've given almost everything to Marcus. I only have my pension and a bit in savings. You won't pay a dime, sir. You gave me much more than money. You gave me an opportunity. I'm going to defend you for free. Actually, it's not even free. It's a debt of gratitude I owe you. I felt my eyes fill with tears. But Julian, that's a lot of work. It'll take up your time. Mr. Vance, you paid for 6 months of my prep course when I had nothing. You taught me how to work. You treated me like a son when my own father abandoned me. Everything I am today, I owe to you. Now, it's my turn to help. We agreed to meet the next day at his office. He asked me to bring all the documentation, transfer receipts, bank statements, any medical records I had, and he asked for one more thing. Mr. Vance, it would be good if you went to a doctor and got a full evaluation, a neurological exam, a psychological evaluation. That way we prove you are fully capable. I have a colleague who is a geriatrician. He can do that for you. The next day, I went to Julian's office early. It was a nice place downtown, very professional. He greeted me with a tight hug, offered coffee, treated me with kindness, and analyzed all the documents I brought. This here is gold, he said, pointing to the transfer receipts. It clearly shows a pattern of constant requests, and you have them all saved and organized by date. This proves your mind is sharp, your memory is intact, and you are organized. He took me to his colleague's office, Dr. Holloway, a geriatrician about 50 years old. Dr. Holloway examined me for almost 2 hours. He checked my blood pressure, ordered blood work, did memory tests, logic puzzles, and motor coordination tests. He talked to me about my routine and my life. In the end, he gave me the report. Mr. Elias Vance presents full physical and mental capacity, oriented in time and space, memory preserved, logical reasoning adequate, no signs of dementia or cognitive impairment, fully capable of exercising all acts of civil life. With the report in hand, Julian built a strategy. He was going to wait for my son to file the conservatorship petition if he was actually going to do it. And when he did, we'd fight back with everything. The medical report, the transfer receipts showing the pattern of money requests, the neighbor's testimony, and the history of my lucidity and independence. But there's one more thing we can do, Julian said with a smile. We can get ahead of them. I'm going to prepare an out-of-court notice for your son and his family, informing them that any unfounded attempt at a conservatorship will be legally contested. I'll state that it characterizes harassment and an attempt at elder financial abuse, which is a crime. This will scare him. It'll show him you aren't alone, that you have someone defending you, and it'll make him think twice before moving forward. That same day, Julian sent the notice. He sent it by email and certified mail with a return receipt, copies to 3 addresses, Marcus, Tiffany, and her fisher to him, since he had been part of the threats. 2 days later, Julian called me. Mr. Vance, I got a call from their lawyer. They want to schedule a meeting to resolve the misunderstanding. I told them I'd check with you and get back to them. Misunderstanding, I repeated. After everything they did, they call it a misunderstanding. It's a tactic, Mr. Vance. They realized you aren't alone and that things could turn against them. Now, they want to negotiate. What do you want to do? I thought for a few minutes. Part of me wanted to tell them where to go. The other part that part of a father that never fully dies, wanted to give one last chance. Schedule the meeting, but here in your office, with you present. And I want everything on the record. The meeting was set for 3 days later. When the day came, I was nervous. I put on my nice clothes, the same ones I had worn for my birthday. I got to Julian's office half an hour early. They arrived right on time. Marcus, Tiffany, and their lawyer, a man in an expensive suit with a leather briefcase. Her father didn't come. We sat in the conference room. The atmosphere was thick. Marcus wouldn't look me in the eye. Tiffany had a stern face. Their lawyer started. Well, we are here to resolve a family situation that unfortunately escalated unnecessarily. My client, Mr. Marcus Vance, is concerned about his father's well-being. Recent actions, changing the locks, refusing dialogue, agitated behavior, have generated a legitimate concern. Julian responded. Agitated behavior from a 71-year-old lucid man who decided he's done financing his adult son's lifestyle? I have a medical report right here certifying my client's full mental capacity. And I also have receipts for $26,500 in transfers made over 10 years, always following requests. What I see here isn't family concern. It's an attempt to maintain a financial flow that was cut off. Their lawyer was speechless for a few seconds. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Look, the lawyer continued, changing tactics. Let's be practical. The family wants an amicable solution. Mr. Marcus proposes the following. He takes over the management of his father's estate, ensuring everything is well cared for, and in exchange, he guarantees comfort and care for Mr. Elias, including the possibility of a high-quality assisted living facility. Is that what he wants to say? I spoke for the first time in the meeting. No, Mr. Vance, an assisted living facility, a good place, with all the infrastructure. I don't need it. I take good care of my house and myself. I am not handing over my estate for anyone to manage. Pop, Marcus finally spoke. We just want to help you. That house is too big for you. You're alone. What if something happens? What if you fall or feel sick? I have neighbors who look out for me. I have good health. And I have enough sense to know that you don't want to help me. You want my money. You want my house. That's not true, Tiffany finally spoke, her voice sharp. You're being so unfair. Your son has always been attentive. I looked at her. This woman who barely spoke to me, who never thanked me for the $2,800 I paid for my granddaughter's school. Attentive. He forgot my birthday. 2 days later, he asked for $5,500 for your party. That's being attentive? It was a slip. It happens. It might happen. But asking for money, without even apologizing first, that doesn't happen. Not with me. Not ever again. Julian stepped in. Look, I think it's clear. There's no agreement here. My client has no interest in handing over management of his assets to anyone. He is fully capable, as the medical report proves. Any attempt at a conservatorship will be fought in court. And what's more, if you persist, I will file criminal charges for attempted elder financial abuse, fraud, and illegal coercion, crimes with severe penalties. Their lawyer frowned and gathered his papers. Very well. Let it be noted then that we attempted an amicable solution. If there is a need for judicial measures, they will stem from legitimate concern for Mr. Elias's health and safety. You can stem whatever you want, Julian shot back. We'll be ready. They stood up. Marcus walked past me without a word. Tiffany followed. Their lawyer shook Julian's hand, looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Pity, disdain, and left. When the door closed, I slumped in the chair. My hands were shaking. Julian put his hand on my shoulder. You were very brave, Mr. Vance. I don't know if I was brave. I just know I'm tired. So very tired. In the following days, I waited for some reaction. A lawsuit, a new threat, something. But nothing came. The silence was almost worse than the confrontation. Until one afternoon, 3 weeks after that meeting, I got an unexpected visit. It was Mrs. Gladys Abernathy, Tiffany's mother. She asked to come in. She said she came alone, that her husband and daughter didn't know she was there. I offered her coffee. She accepted. We sat in the living room. She was a woman in her 60s, well-dressed, but with a weary expression. "Mr. Vance, I came to apologize," she started, "for my husband, for my daughter, for what they did to you." I was shocked. I wasn't expecting this. "I don't agree with any of it," she continued. "When Tiffany told me they were going to ask you for $5,500 for her party, I told her it was absurd. A party isn't a priority. You're a hard-working man. You've already given so much to your son. They had no right to demand anything more. Why are you telling me this? Because I know how it is? My husband is a difficult man. He thinks everyone should do exactly what he wants. He was the one who put those ideas in Tiffany and Marcus's heads. The idea that you had an obligation to help, that you were being selfish, that they could force you to give the money." She took a sip of her coffee and looked out the window. "I tried to talk to them. I said they were wrong, but nobody listens to me. They never have. And now, things are ugly. My husband is furious because the lawyer charged a lot and didn't solve anything. Tiffany is resentful because she didn't get the party she wanted. Marcus is... I don't even know what he is. I think he's ashamed, but he won't admit it. And what do you expect me to do? Nothing. I didn't come to ask for anything. I just came to say you did the right thing, and that if you need a witness, someone to confirm that you've always been a good father and they've been ungrateful, I will testify for you." I was speechless. My son's mother-in-law offering to testify for me against her own daughter. Why would you do that? Because it's right. And because I'm tired of watching my family act wrong while I stay quiet. I'm not staying quiet anymore. She stood up, took her purse, and left a note with her phone number on the table. "If you need me, call, and take good care of yourself, Mr. Vance. You deserve peace after all that work." She left. I stared at that paper with her number. An unexpected ally. Someone from inside their family who saw the truth. I called Julian and told him. He said it was excellent, that if we needed it, we had a powerful witness. But deep down, I hoped I wouldn't need it. I hoped it would all just end soon, one way or another. A few months have passed since that meeting in Julian's office. Marcus never filed the conservatorship petition. I think he realized he wouldn't get anywhere. He'd just be wasting money on a lawyer and risking criminal charges. He tried to talk to me twice. I didn't answer. He sent a text saying he wanted to chat. I didn't reply. I had nothing left to say to him. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel deep pain. I felt something worse. Indifference. It was like that man wasn't my son anymore, just a stranger who had once lived in my house. Gladys, his mother-in-law, calls me sometimes. She says Marcus is different at home, quieter, more withdrawn. Tiffany complains that he's not motivated by anything anymore, that their marriage is struggling. I listen. I thank her for the concern, but nothing changes inside me. Julian has continued to be a son to me, more of a son than my own flesh and blood. He comes to visit every month. He brings his wife and his 2 little kids. The kids call me Grandpa Elias. They play in my backyard and eat the cake I bake. That fills my heart with a joy I haven't felt in years. I started going to the neighborhood senior center. There's a group of us who get together to play dominoes, talk, and go for walks. I've made new friends. I met Ms. Hattie, a widow of 68, who lives 3 blocks down. We aren't dating or anything like that, but she's good company. We have coffee together. Sometimes we go to service on Sundays. We talk about life. My routine has become lighter. I wake up early, have breakfast while watching the birds in the yard. I take care of the garden. I started in the back. I plant tomatoes, lettuce, and herbs. In the afternoons, I go to the community center or host my neighbors. At night, I watch TV, read a bit, and go to bed early. There are days I think about Marcus. There are days I look at old photos of him as a little boy and feel a sting in my chest. But then I remember everything that happened, and the sting passes. I gave everything I could give. I did everything a father should do. I have nothing to regret. He's the one who has to regret. I've learned one thing in these 71 years of mine. A child's love can't be bought. It doesn't matter how much money you give, how much you sacrifice. If a person doesn't have gratitude in their heart, if they don't have respect or consideration, nothing you do will change that. And you have to know when to stop, when to say enough. I said enough, and it was the best thing I ever did. I don't have that knot in my chest anymore when the phone rings. I don't have that anxiety waiting for a visit that never comes. I don't have that sadness of feeling used. I have peace. The peace of someone who did what they had to do and can now rest easy. My house is still mine. My money is still mine. My life is still mine. And nobody is going to take that away from me as long as I have the strength to fight. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.